Let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking something incredibly fascinating, Dr. Gary Meadors' framework for applying ancient biblical theology to highly complex modern ethical dilemmas. We're talking about those really tough situations where direct, literal proof texts simply do not exist. Think about it. As technology and culture evolve at absolutely breakneck speed, how does a person using a biblical worldview actually figure out what to do? Well, that's exactly the puzzle this framework aims to solve. Now, right off the bat, Dr. Meadors isn't just handing out a simple checklist of rights and wrongs. He uses that classic foundational metaphor. He's trying to teach us how to fish. Developing a robust system for making these tough decisions requires serious research and critical thinking, not just hunting for an easy list of rules. He really emphasizes that this isn't some walk in the park where you adopt a faith and boom, you suddenly possess a flawless moral compass downloaded straight into your brain. No, you have to actively grow your capacity to apply a value system to entirely new, unprecedented situations. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We'll start with the decision-making framework itself, then look at agrarian versus modern cultures. After that, we'll tackle the ethics of life and death, views on gender and sexuality, perspectives on modern warfare, and wrap up with the absolute necessity of doing your research. Okay, let's get into Section 1, the decision-making framework, moving beyond proof texts. To navigate all this complexity, Dr. Meadors uses what he calls a taxonomic ladder. It's basically a step-by-step process. When you face an issue, step 1 is straightforward. Look for direct Bible verses. If you come up empty there, you move to step 2, which is looking for implied verses. But, and here's the catch, for a lot of our modern problems, those first two steps completely fall short. So we're forced into step 3, building creative constructs. This essentially means taking broad biblical views on life, humanity, and God's design, and critically applying them to a brand new situation to chart an ethical path forward. Moving on to Section 2. Agrarian versus modern cultures, the quiver-full metaphor. The tension between these two eras perfectly highlights why we even need these creative constructs in the first place. Dr. Meadors points to a well-known biblical metaphor from the Psalms. Happy is the man who has his quiver full. Now, in an ancient agrarian world, having 10 or 15 kids wasn't just considered a blessing, it was an absolute economic necessity. You literally needed workers for the farm, and honestly, children were your only social security system. But contrast that with our world today. Modern families are looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses just to raise one child from birth through college. Since there's no direct ancient text saying thou shalt practice birth control, a modern Christian has to construct a framework. They have to weigh that historical mandate to multiply against the drastically different, highly expensive realities of modern life. Next up, Section 3, Ethics of Life and Death, when science outpaces ancient texts. So how exactly do we handle ethical gray areas that ancient writers literally couldn't have imagined in their wildest dreams? We're talking about really high-stakes dilemmas here. In vitro fertilization, the medical use of fetal tissue, genetic science, cloning, and assisted suicide. You see, scientists are primarily focused on pushing the boundaries of what's possible, not necessarily establishing the ethics of those discoveries. Without a single direct text addressing something like, say, genetic cloning, decision-makers have to step way back. They're forced to ask the absolute highest level worldview questions. Who gives life? Who controls it? And who ultimately has the authority to decide when someone passes away? And, of course, abortion heavily dominates this kind of high taxonomy discussion. Dr. Meadors points out something really interesting here. The definition of when life begins has constantly shifted over time, usually depending on who's actually leading the conversation. Traditionally, theologians defined personhood at the exact moment of conception. But as time went on, the medical community shifted that definition over to implantation, largely to accommodate modern advancements like the morning-after pill. And more recently, the debate has shifted yet again. Now you have philosophers and social organizations arguing that personhood philosophically begins at birth. Figuring out a stance here relies entirely on constructing a deeply researched view of life itself, simply because ancient medical terminology doesn't even come close to matching our own. Let's shift to Section 4. Views on gender and sexuality, navigating high taxonomy discussions. Here, Dr. Meadors reframes the whole modern nature versus nurture debate when it comes to sexuality. Within his specific biblical framework, human nature was inherently altered by the biblical fall. What that means for him is that the current DNA code is actually a distortion of the original design. So his framework argues that even if a behavior feels completely innate and natural to a person, it has to be evaluated against that original, pre-fall design, rather than just accepting current human nature as the ultimate baseline. As you can imagine, This is an incredibly complex discussion that fundamentally alters how someone approaching this worldview looks at the very origin of human desires. Moving right along to Section 5, Perspectives on Modern Warfare, from Canaan to Chemical Weapons. This is a heavy one. Does self-defense sanction killing? This profound question highlights a massive, massive tension in the text. How in the world do you square ancient texts that explicitly command holy war, like the total destruction ordered in ancient Canaan, with modern realities like the atomic bomb, chemical warfare, or even the concept of Christian pacifism? The sheer scale of destruction today is entirely unprecedented. It forces anyone utilizing this framework to deeply, critically analyze the historical and theological context of those ancient commands and weigh them against modern rules of engagement and global self-defense. And finally, Section 6, the necessity of research, doing the homework of discernment. Because let's be real, none of us are naturally qualified to make superficial choices on massive issues like these. Dr. Meadors insists we absolutely must do the hard work. His action plan is pretty clear-cut. First, consult long-standing church traditions. You want to see how thinkers historically wrestled with similar concepts. Second, read comprehensively. If you're researching reproductive technology, for instance, you need to read a competent doctor to understand the actual science and a competent theologian to grasp the worldview implications. Third, he highly recommends multi-view resources. He specifically calls out Zondervan's Counterpoint series. These books are great because they place 4 different expert views right side by side on topics like war or pacifism, which totally forces the reader to engage critically rather than just safely living in an echo chamber. I want to leave you with a question Dr. Meadors asks, which I think is a really provocative thought. If you don't use this framework, what are you using? Because at the end of the day, whatever framework you use, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other on these massive issues. You simply cannot opt out of modern ethical dilemmas. They're going to find you. So what is the ultimate foundation of your reasoning? I hope this explainer has given you a clear picture of how structured, researched frameworks operate and leaves you thinking a bit more deeply about how you navigate the incredibly complex gray areas of our modern world.